The first crack appeared on a Tuesday. No one screamed. No alarms rang. No scientists rushed onto television because no one else could see it. Only 12-year-old Oliver froze in the middle of the empty soccer field, staring at the full moon hanging above the town like a silver lantern. Across its glowing surface, a thin black line slowly stretched from one crater to another. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't a cloud. The moon was breaking. Oliver rubbed his eyes until they hurt. The crack remained. Then, just as suddenly, it disappeared. Oliver. His best friend Maya waved from the goalpost. "You coming or what?" Oliver looked back at the sky. The moon looked perfectly normal again. Maybe he had imagined it. Maybe staying up too late reading fantasy novels had finally melted his brain. He laughed nervously and ran toward the field. But something inside him whispered that imagination had nothing to do with what he had just seen. That night, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he remembered the crack. It hadn't looked like broken rock. It looked alive, like a wound slowly opening. At exactly 2:13 in the morning, Oliver sat up. His bedroom felt strangely cold. The moonlight pouring through his window seemed brighter than usual, almost liquid. Without knowing why, he walked outside. The streets of Ashmore were silent. Not even the wind moved. Dogs weren't barking. Owls weren't calling. It was as if every living creature had forgotten how to make a sound. Oliver followed the moonlight into the woods behind his neighborhood. He didn't know why. His feet simply kept moving. Branches bent away from him as though something unseen was guiding his path. Soon he reached an old stone circle everyone in town avoided. The elders called it Moonwatch Hill. Children were told ghost stories about it. Parents warned them never to visit after sunset. No one ever explained why. Tonight, the ancient stones glowed faintly blue. Oliver stepped between them. The air instantly became heavier. The moon filled almost the entire sky. And there it was again, the crack. Only now, it had become 3 cracks. They spread silently across the moon's surface like frozen lightning. Tiny silver fragments floated upward instead of falling. Oliver's heart hammered. Pieces of the moon should fall, not rise. As he watched, one glowing fragment drifted through the clouds toward Earth. It moved slowly, gracefully, like a feather. The tiny piece landed inside the stone circle. The ground trembled. A crystal no bigger than an apple rested on the grass. Its surface shimmered with stars trapped inside. Oliver reached toward it. The moment his fingers touched the crystal, the world vanished. He wasn't standing on Moonwatch Hill anymore. He stood inside an endless white desert beneath the sky without stars. Towering above him floated the moon, only it wasn't made of stone. It was made of millions of glowing threads woven together like an enormous web. Every crack he had seen was tearing those threads apart. Something enormous moved beneath them, something trying to claw its way out. Oliver couldn't see its face. Only 2 colossal golden eyes opening behind the fractures. A voice echoed through the empty world, not loud, not angry, just impossibly old. "The seal is failing." Oliver spun around. No one stood there. The voice continued. "The child who sees must remember." "What seal?" Oliver whispered. "What child?" Silence. Then the moon shook. One thread snapped. A sound unlike anything Oliver had ever heard rolled across the white desert. Not an explosion, not thunder. It sounded like the sky itself crying. The golden eyes opened wider. The darkness behind them smiled. Oliver stumbled backward. No! The ground beneath him dissolved into silver dust. He fell, faster, faster, straight toward the earth. He woke up lying inside the stone circle. Morning sunlight warmed his face. Birds chirped happily. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. The crystal was still in his hand. It wasn't a dream. He shoved it into his backpack before anyone could see. On the walk home, the entire town seemed strangely cheerful. Neighbors smiled, children laughed, people watered gardens, cars rolled past. No one looked worried. No one looked at the moon. Oliver wanted to tell someone, anyone. Instead, he chose his grandfather. If anyone believed impossible stories, it was Grandpa Elias. Everyone thought he was just an old fisherman who spent too much time staring at the night sky. But Oliver remembered something. Years ago, Grandpa had once told him, "The moon protects more than it reflects." At the time, Oliver thought it was just another one of his strange sayings. Now, it felt different. Grandpa lived alone in a tiny lighthouse overlooking Blackwater Lake. The old building leaned slightly to one side, as though years of storms had pushed it toward the water. When Oliver arrived, Grandpa was sitting outside carving tiny moons into pieces of driftwood. Without looking up, he spoke. I wondered how long it would take. Oliver froze. "You knew I'd come?" Grandpa sighed. "I knew the moon would choose someone." Oliver's stomach twisted. "You believe me?" Grandpa finally looked into his eyes. Not surprised, not confused. Sad, very sad. "I believe you because I saw the cracks too." Oliver blinked. "You said only I could see them." "I said only one child can." Oliver frowned. "I saw them many years ago." Silence settled between them. Grandpa carefully placed his carving knife on the table. "I was 12. The word stole Oliver's breath. "The same age?" Grandpa nodded. "The moon chooses one child every generation." Oliver slowly took the crystal from his backpack. Grandpa's face turned pale. "You touched it." "I didn't mean to." "I know." Grandpa stood so quickly his chair toppled backward. "We're already running out of time." "What is it?" Grandpa gently held the crystal. Its glow immediately brightened. The room darkened, although the sun still shone outside. Tiny stars appeared across the wooden walls. Grandpa whispered one word. "Moonglass." "What does it do?" "It remembers." "Remembers what?" Grandpa closed his eyes. "The day the moon was never meant to break." Oliver stared at him. "What do you mean?" Grandpa walked toward an ancient bookshelf covered in dust. Hidden behind dozens of old journals sat a weathered wooden chest secured by 7 silver locks. Each lock carried the symbol of a different phase of the moon. Grandpa opened every lock with a different key hanging around his neck. Inside lay maps unlike any Oliver had ever seen. Not maps of countries, maps of the night sky. Every constellation was connected by handwritten notes. Ancient symbols covered every page. At the center rested a single black book. Its cover looked cracked exactly like the moon. Grandpa hesitated before touching it. "I promised I'd never open this again." "Why?" "Because every time someone learns the truth—" He looked toward the sky outside the lighthouse window. "The cracks grow wider." Before Oliver could ask another question, the lighthouse lantern exploded. Glass rained across the room. The crystal in Grandpa's hand turned blinding white. Outside, every bird in the sky suddenly flew in the same direction, away from the moon. The lake became perfectly still. Not a single ripple disturbed its surface. Then, a deep sound echoed across the world. Slow, ancient, like stone grinding against stone. Oliver looked up. For just one heartbeat, everyone in town looked toward the moon at exactly the same time. Then they looked away again, as if they had instantly forgotten why. But Oliver hadn't forgotten, because the cracks had returned, and this time they were spreading. Oliver ran outside before his grandfather could stop him. The afternoon sky was bright blue, yet the moon still hung faintly above the horizon. Thin fractures crawled across its pale surface like veins beneath skin. They hadn't been there a second earlier. "They're growing," Oliver whispered. Grandpa Elias grabbed his shoulder. "Don't stare too long." "Why?" "Because once the moon realizes you can see it," he hesitated, "it begins to watch you back." Oliver slowly lowered his eyes. The feeling arrived immediately. Someone, or something, was looking down from unimaginably far away, not with hatred, not with kindness, with expectation. Grandpa hurried him inside and locked every door, although ordinary locks suddenly seemed meaningless. He placed the black book on the wooden table. Dust floated around it like tiny silver insects. "I hoped this day would never come," he said quietly. "When I was your age, my grandfather opened this same book for me." Oliver swallowed. "So this has happened before?" "Many times." "The moon breaks every generation?" Grandpa shook his head. "No." He carefully opened the first page. "The seal weakens every generation." Ancient drawings covered the parchment. They showed enormous beings made of darkness surrounding the earth long before humans built cities. Above them floated the moon, not as a natural satellite, but as an immense sphere woven from glowing threads, each thread connected to strange towers standing across mountains, deserts, forests, and oceans. "What are those?" Oliver asked. "The anchors. They keep the moon together. They keep something inside it." Oliver felt cold despite the summer heat. "The eyes." Grandpa looked at him sharply. "You saw them." Oliver nodded. "They opened." The old man's face lost all color. "They've never opened this early." Silence filled the lighthouse. Only the distant sound of waves tapping the rocks remained. Grandpa turned several pages. One illustration showed 7 enormous cracks spreading across the moon. Each crack reached one glowing tower. "The anchors fail one by one," Grandpa explained. "When the 7th falls—" He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Oliver already understood. Something imprisoned inside the moon would finally escape. "But what is it?" Oliver asked. Grandpa closed the book. "No one knows its true name." "The book doesn't say?" "It refuses to." "What does that mean?" Grandpa looked uncomfortable. "The book changes." Oliver frowned. "It writes different things for different readers." He flipped to another page. Blank. Another. Blank again. Then he handed the book to Oliver. The instant Oliver touched it, black ink flowed across the empty paper. Words appeared by themselves, not slowly, instantly, like they had always been waiting. Oliver read aloud. "The creature has many names. The oldest people called it the Devourer of Dawn. The stars called it the Silence Between Songs. Children know it only as—" The sentence stopped. New letters formed. "The Hollow King." The room shook, every candle extinguished. Outside, thunder rolled across a perfectly clear sky. Grandpa snatched the book shut. "It knows you read its name." "What does that mean?" "It knows you're awake." Before Oliver could answer, 3 sharp knocks echoed against the lighthouse door. Knock, knock, knock. Grandpa froze. No one ever visited without calling first, especially not at sunset. The knocking came again. Exactly 3 knocks, slow, perfectly spaced. Grandpa whispered, "Don't make a sound." The knocks stopped. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then a little girl's voice came through the door. "Grandpa, it's me." Oliver's blood turned to ice. It sounded exactly like his younger sister, Emma. But Emma was at school across town. She couldn't possibly be here. Grandpa remained completely still. The voice became sweeter. "Oliver, I'm scared. Please open the door." Oliver instinctively stepped forward. Grandpa grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "No." "But that's Emma." "No." The old man's voice trembled. "It only borrows voices." The knocking disappeared. Footsteps circled the lighthouse, slowly, patiently. Something walked around the walls, never revealing itself. Oliver held his breath. After several endless minutes, the footsteps faded into the forest. Grandpa didn't move for another full minute. Finally, he exhaled. "It found you much sooner than I feared." "What found me? The Watchers? The golden eyes?" "No." He looked toward the ceiling. "They serve the eyes." Oliver glanced outside. The forest surrounding the lighthouse suddenly felt enormous. Every shadow between the trees looked deeper than before. Grandpa rolled up an ancient map across the table. It wasn't a map of roads. It was a map of invisible lines connecting different places around the world. Each line glowed faintly silver. 7 circles had been drawn across the map. 6 were marked with ancient symbols. The 7th lay directly beneath Ashmore. Oliver stared. "Our town?" Grandpa nodded. "Moonwatch Hill wasn't built by people." "What?" "It was discovered." "When?" "No one remembers. The hill existed before history." Oliver remembered the glowing stones. The crystal fell there, because that's where the 7th anchor sleeps. Oliver felt his heart pound faster. "So we protect it?" Grandpa slowly shook his head. "We wake it?" Before Oliver could process those words, a bright flash illuminated the room. The moon-glass crystal floated into the air by itself. Silver light spilled across the walls. The map began changing. New lines appeared, one after another. Grandpa stared in horror. "It shouldn't be moving yet." "What?" "The fractures." The glowing paths shifted across the world until they converged on a single place, Blackwater Lake, right beneath the lighthouse. Oliver looked outside. The water had become perfectly reflective. Not even the slightest breeze disturbed its surface. It looked less like water and more like polished glass. Something moved underneath. Slowly, a gigantic shadow, much larger than the lighthouse itself. Oliver blinked. The shadow vanished. Then every window exploded inward. A freezing wind roared through the lighthouse. The moon-glass crystal shot toward the ceiling before crashing back into Oliver's hands. The black book flipped open on its own. Its pages turned wildly, stopping on a brand-new illustration. A boy stood beside 7 glowing stones. Behind him rose the cracked moon. Facing him stood a creature without a face. Instead of features, its head reflected the night sky. Except there were no stars, only darkness. Below the picture, new words appeared. "The first watcher has crossed." Grandpa slammed the book shut. "We have to leave." "Where?" "The observatory." "I thought it was abandoned." "It is." "Then why?" "Because abandoned places are sometimes forgotten by people." He looked toward the moon, but never by magic. They packed quickly. Grandpa took the black book, the star maps, several strange silver keys, and a compass that didn't point north. Instead, its needle always pointed toward the moon. Night fell faster than it should have. By the time they reached the forest path, stars already covered the sky. Too many stars. Oliver looked up. He knew the constellations. He loved astronomy. But these weren't the right ones. Several familiar constellations had disappeared. Others had moved. One new constellation stretched across the eastern sky. It resembled a giant eye, watching. Grandpa refused to look upward. Keep your eyes on the trail. Why? Because the sky is changing before the earth does. The forest had changed too. Trees leaned in impossible directions. Roots twisted across the ground like sleeping snakes. The deeper they walked, the quieter everything became. No insects, no birds, no leaves moving, only footsteps. At first, Oliver thought they were his own. Then he realized there was another pair, always matching their pace, never getting closer, never falling behind. He turned. Nothing. The footsteps continued. Grandpa didn't even look back. It wants you to? Oliver forced himself forward. Minutes later, they reached an old stone bridge crossing a narrow river. Halfway across, Oliver noticed something impossible. Their reflections weren't following them. Grandpa's reflection stood completely still. Oliver's reflection was looking directly upward at the moon, even though Oliver wasn't. Then reflection. Oliver smiled, a slow smile, one Oliver had never made. His reflection raised one hand, not to wave, to point. Behind him, Oliver spun around. Standing at the end of the bridge was a tall figure wearing a cloak made of moving shadows. Its face reflected the cracked moon. Where its eyes should have been, two golden lights burned silently. The first watcher had found them. The first watcher did not chase them. It didn't need to. It simply stood at the end of the bridge, motionless beneath the pale moonlight, as if it had been waiting there for centuries. Its cloak rippled without wind. Its golden eyes never blinked. Oliver's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Grandpa Elias slowly raised one hand. Don't run. What? If we run? His voice remained calm despite the fear in his eyes. It learns fear. The watcher tilted its head. The river beneath the bridge suddenly froze, not into ice, into perfectly smooth silver. Oliver looked down. Instead of water, he saw the white desert from his vision, the endless place beneath the moon. The same golden eyes watched him from below. Then a whisper crawled across the bridge. Child. Oliver covered his ears. The whisper continued inside his mind. The moon is lying to you, Grandpa shouted. Don't answer. It imprisoned us. Oliver squeezed his eyes shut. We were the first guardians. Another whisper, softer, kinder. We only want to go home. For a single dangerous moment, Oliver almost believed it. The voice sounded lonely, not monstrous, not evil, just heartbroken. Then he remembered something. When the watcher had borrowed Emma's voice, it had lied. Grandpa had warned him. It borrowed what people trusted most. Now it was borrowing pity. Oliver took one slow step forward. I won't listen. The golden lights narrowed. The bridge trembled violently. Cracks raced beneath their feet. Grandpa threw one of the silver keys onto the stone. The key burst into blue fire. Ancient symbols spread across the bridge like glowing vines. The watcher didn't scream. It simply faded backward into darkness, not defeated, only delayed. Grandpa grabbed Oliver's arm. Move! They ran through the forest until the trees finally opened. Before them stood the abandoned Mooncrest Observatory. Its enormous dome was cracked. Vines covered the walls. Broken telescopes pointed forever toward the heavens. Yet, as Oliver approached, the building awakened. dust lifted from the stones. Thousands of tiny blue lights appeared between the cracks. The heavy bronze doors opened by themselves. Inside, the air smelled of old paper and rain. The central chamber held an enormous telescope unlike anything Oliver had ever seen. It wasn't aimed at the sky. It pointed downward, toward the center of the earth. "Why?" Oliver asked. Grandpa smiled sadly. "Because the moon isn't above us." Oliver frowned. "It surrounds us." Before he could ask what that meant, the moonglass crystal floated from his backpack once again. It flew into a circular pedestal beneath the telescope. The entire observatory shook. Ancient gears hidden inside the walls began turning. One by one, enormous mirrors unfolded across the chamber. Moonlight entered through the broken dome. Instead of reflecting outward, every beam converged on the crystal. The room disappeared. Oliver stood once again inside the endless white desert. But this time he wasn't alone. 7 children stood in a circle around him. Each wore clothes from a different century. A Viking girl, a medieval shepherd, a boy dressed like an ancient Egyptian, a young sailor, a child wrapped in animal skins, a girl from the future wearing clothes Oliver couldn't even describe, and finally, a 12-year-old Grandpa Elias. All of them held identical moonglass crystals. The young grandpa smiled. "I knew you'd come." Oliver stared. "Is this a memory?" "No." "A dream?" "No." "What is this?" "A place where every keeper meets." Oliver looked around. "So all of you saw the cracks?" They nodded together. "For thousands of years." The Viking girl stepped forward. "The moon chooses one child." The Egyptian boy continued. "Not because children are stronger," the future girl smiled, "but because they still believe impossible things can be true." The white desert shook. Far away, another glowing thread snapped. The Hollow King's golden eyes opened wider than ever before. A roar rolled across existence itself. Mountains cracked. Stars flickered. The 7 children looked toward Oliver. "It's time." "For what?" The young grandpa handed him a glowing thread. "The seal cannot repair itself." "It never could." Oliver looked at the fragile strand. "It's broken." "Yes." "So how do I fix it?" The future girl answered. "You don't?" Oliver stared. "What?" "You replace it." Silence. Then understanding slowly spread through him. "The seal is woven from keepers." No one answered. They didn't have to. Oliver finally understood why only one child was chosen every generation. The moon wasn't consuming them. It was asking for help. Every keeper willingly became one thread holding the prison together, not forever, until the next keeper arrived, generation after generation, a chain of courage stretching across history. Oliver stepped backward. "No, I'm just a kid." "So were we," the shepherd boy said gently. "I'll disappear?" The young grandpa smiled. "You'll become part of every moonrise." Oliver thought of his mother, his little sister, Maya, Grandpa, the soccer field summer afternoons, birthdays that hadn't happened yet. He wanted all of them. He wanted to grow up. He wanted an ordinary life. The Hollow King laughed. Its voice shook the white desert. The remaining threads burst apart, one after another. The prison was collapsing. Oliver looked toward the children. "Were you afraid?" Every single one of them answered together. "Yes." "Then why?" The Viking girl looked toward Earth. "Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing someone else before yourself." Oliver closed his eyes. Tears rolled down his face. Then another voice echoed through the desert. "Oliver!" Emma. Not an imitation, not borrowed. real. He opened his eyes. Through one remaining thread, he could see his family searching the forest, his mother crying, his sister refusing to give up, Grandpa standing silently beneath the moon. Oliver smiled. "They'll remember me?" Young Grandpa shook his head. "They'll remember how you made them feel." Oliver breathed deeply. Then he stepped toward the center of the broken web. The moonglass crystal dissolved into countless stars. Each star became another glowing thread. Oliver reached both hands toward the largest fracture. The moon answered. Light poured through him, not painful, warm. Like every happy memory he'd ever lived, he saw children laughing beneath moonlight across every century, families reunited, lost travelers finding home, sailors crossing oceans, dreamers making wishes. The moon had quietly protected them all, not by shining, by holding back the darkness behind its light. Oliver whispered one final sentence, "Then let everyone keep dreaming." He placed both hands upon the fracture. The new thread ignited. Silver light exploded across the heavens. Every crack stopped spreading. One by one, they closed. The Hollow King's roar became distant, then silent. The golden eyes slowly disappeared. The endless white desert dissolved. Oliver expected darkness. Instead, he became light. Back in Ashmore, every person looked toward the moon. No one knew why. It looked brighter than anyone could remember. Whole, peaceful, beautiful. Grandpa Elias smiled through quiet tears. He looked up and whispered, "Welcome to the sky, my boy." Years passed. Children once again played beneath full moons. Scientists never discovered any cracks. The world continued exactly as before, almost, because on certain quiet nights, when the moon shines especially bright, some children swear they can see the faint outline of a smiling boy waving from its surface. Most adults laugh, but few very old people simply smile because they know the truth. The moon is still watching over the world, and somewhere within its eternal light, a brave 12-year-old keeper is watching over it. The brightest lights are often held together by sacrifices no one will ever see. Oliver was never the strongest child, the smartest, or the bravest, without fear. He was simply someone who chose hope when fear offered an easier path. In doing so, he became part of something far greater than himself. Every generation faces its own invisible cracks, moments when the world seems ready to fall apart. We may not be asked to save the moon, but we are all given chances to protect the people we love with our kindness, courage, and selflessness. True heroes rarely seek recognition. They quietly become the reason others can keep smiling, dreaming, and believing that tomorrow will be brighter than today. So the next time you look up at a full moon, remember this. Perhaps its light isn't only reflecting the sun. Perhaps it is also carrying the courage of every heart that chose others before itself. If this story captured your imagination, there's much more to come. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new tale. Until next time, take care and keep wondering.